Now let's turn our attention to Saudi Arabia. Reports have come out about the kingdom's de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman. Reports about MBS and his anger towards the US. You'll remember that last year, US President Joe Biden had gone to Saudi Arabia. He engaged in fist-bump diplomacy, tried his best to bring a thaw in the frosty ties with the kingdom. It's because Biden wanted something. He wanted Riyadh to maintain a steady oil output. That did not happen, and Biden vowed there would be consequences to Saudi Arabia's decision. It turns out that statement was not taken well. Reports say MBS threatened to completely change the US-Saudi relationship. He allegedly said he would impose significant economic costs on the US if it retaliated against the oil cuts. The Crown Prince's fury was revealed in leaked US documents. American officials have said they are not aware of the threat. They also added it could have just been a moment of anger, that it did not reflect the big picture. That explanation seems fair. But what the US has done since then seems to suggest that it was aware of the Saudi prince's rage and it took MBS's threat seriously. Let's look at what has happened since Biden vowed to punish Saudi Arabia for slashing oil output. Saudi has said it will cut output again. There have been no consequences imposed by the US. In fact, it seems Washington is doing its best to mend ties. Even though Biden has not visited the kingdom, a lot of his officials have. High-profile ones like National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and CIA Director William J. Burns. The latest top official to visit is US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Blinken met MBS Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan and a host of leaders from the Gulf nations. They spoke of increased cooperation and improving ties. That doesn't sound like the consequences Biden had promised. Instead, Washington seems to be bringing out the checkbook. Blinken thanked Saudi Arabia for its leadership in dealing with the terror group ISIS. Then he pledged money to a regional stabilization fund.
The United States very much appreciates the leadership of Saudi Arabia, not only in hosting this meeting, but for its contributions, constant contributions, and crucial contributions day in, day out to our mission.
Today, we're announcing a funding goal for the Stabilization Pledge Drive of just over $601 million. And I'm announcing that the United States is committing $148.7 million to that fund. This support will meet critical needs that Syrians and Iraqis themselves have identified. Addressing vulnerabilities previously exploited by ISIS.
But it looks like Riyadh wants more than that. Saudi Arabia wants the US to help it set up its domestic nuclear program. Washington has been wary about this. It thinks this risks nuclear proliferation in West Asia. But Riyadh is adamant.
On the issue of nuclear cooperation, it's no secret that we are developing our domestic civilian nuclear program. We would very much prefer to be able to have the US as one of the bidders for that program. There are others that are bidding, and obviously we would like to build our program with the best technology in the world. And that will require a certain agreement to be in place. We have differences of opinion. So we're working on finding a mechanism for us to be able to work together on civilian nuclear technology.
The Saudi foreign minister warned that there are others bidding too, and that may have been a reference to China. Beijing has stepped up its activities in West Asia. It recently brokered a diplomatic deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. President Xi Jinping visited Saudi Arabia for a grand Arab nation summit. It is possible that China is looking to move into America's traditional backyard, and that may be why Washington is rushing to mend ties with Saudi Arabia. We began by telling you how one leaked US document mentioned MBS's anger. A second leaked document spoke of his plans. Riyadh allegedly planned to buy drones, missiles, and mass surveillance systems from Beijing. That would have meant a shift from the decades of security relations with the US, cutting the strongest bond between the two nations, the military ties. Could that have been the tipping point? And could it have made the US realize everything it could lose by angering MBS? It would explain the U-turn in US diplomacy and why, despite Biden's threat of making MBS a pariah, The US seems to be currying favor with the Crown Prince once again.